My Hero Academia has been running for quite a while now, and it has at long last come to its end. I've had a great time watching this anime, but as I was watching the final season, it had me thinking about our main character, really, Izuku Midoriya. And I'm not too sure what the fandom's standing on it, but I thought he was a great MC. But then I kind of just wanted to talk about why I thought he was such a good MC. There was something about him that I wasn't able to really process until the very end. Obviously, you'll have your key components of this character, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about him. So let's get into the nitty gritty. Hey, how yo Crumb-Skulls doing? It's me, Cookie, and today we're going to be talking about Izuku Midoriya and what truly makes a hero. We got no rhyme, no reason, we're just going to rant here, so let's get into it. So, Izuku Midoriya, obviously, I think his beginnings were part of the reason why it was such an enjoyable ride from start to finish. I mean, we saw how Izuku was in the very beginning of the story. He's a quirkless loser. He has no abilities, no kind of merit per se, and he's being bullied, constantly put down by classmates, and to be fair, his self-worth is in the bin, right? We have to see certain scenes where he has to be kind of uplifted by well, he needs any kind of uplifting he can really get. But in his head, he feels like the only one that could physically give him that kind of oomph, that push, the way that it takes for him to actually pursue his dreams, that he later does instinctively, is All Might. All Might is the only one in his mind that could give him the kind of self-confidence to pursue his dream of being a hero, and even then he's put down. Deku is, by all intents and purposes, a loser. He is, just to be blunt, let's be so for real right now. Deku has nothing to really show us that he's really about that action. We can tell he's really into heroes, and that's all well and good, but being into heroes doesn't mean that you have the heart of a hero. But then we see his first heroic action. It wasn't just about the fact that he stepped in to save Bakugo from the sludge villain. I think it was more so the fact that his body moved to just save his greatest tormentor. Like, nobody wants Kachan to die. No one. But if anyone was to have a reason, it would be Izuku Midoriya. Right? And it's plain and simple. This man has tormented him for God knows how long, since they were in like kindergarten, right? But it's the fact that there's something so deep in Izuku that he just has to act no matter what. And you have these grown adults who are meant to be acting as fast as they can, or they're waiting on a hero, they're waiting on the correct person, right? They're waiting on the right person to come and save the day. And obviously, All Might, he's transformed and he can't do it again because of his injury, but it's Deku. Deku is the one that moves first cog in the machine, sets things in motion. But it was a lot more impactful looking back that even though we don't have the full context, yes, they were friends once upon a lifetime ago, but it was Deku, the loser, the one who's been bullied for years by his classmates and has been actively told to basically swan dive off the roof of the high school building by this person who is now in help, and he still goes to save them. I think that from the very beginning, you can kind of see Deku's strength and his force of will in a way. He wants to save, and it's exemplified by not just necessarily wanting to save in the physical sense. He wants to save people not just from the imminent danger that they're in, but from themselves. Moving on swiftly, I do think that as we see Deku as a protagonist, we also it's very telling that he has flaws. Deku is neurotic at the end of the day, right? He loves heroes, but to a debilitating degree. And he still doesn't have that self-confidence in him, even though he has earned the right to be able to use this quirk. He feels like this quirk isn't necessarily his. It's still a gift from his idol, right? And if he doesn't take care of it, if he doesn't show that he has anything worth it to show to anyone, then what's the point? Then he wouldn't deserve the power. Hell, he doesn't even feel like he deserves the power in the first place. He feels worthless, and that he didn't take his time treating this quirk with the respect it needed, right? And you know that Deku loves quirks. If anything, the respect he has for anyone with a quirk, including his own quirk, right, is astronomical. I'm pretty sure in the entirety of the My Hero Academia story, we are under the impression that Deku has a massive fatal flaw, but it's also his greatest strength, which is his determination that's encapsulated and fuels this almost psychotic urge to use self-sacrifice, right? And it's embodied in the fact that he never really gains true mastery of his quirk, right? He is a hero, but he is a self-destructive one. Like, come on now, let's be real. This boy is out here breaking his bones 24/7, keeping a recovery girl in employment, right? I know every time she sees Deku walk into that office, she's like, oh, you again? What are we doing here, right? But Deku just embodies this self-sacrifice of a hero, right? And it's initially, you think it's a really admirable thing, but as the seasons develop, you see that Deku is really, truly breaking his body to just be able to save. Just to be able to save anyone. And his whole mantra is save to win. And Bakugo is the antithesis, win to save. But we're going to focus on Deku's part. Save to win doesn't necessarily mean victory. That means victory to Deku, right? If you can save everyone, you win, right? Or if you can save people, you're winning. But how can you necessarily say that when you're fighting someone like Tomura Shigaraki, whose whole thing is destruction? Saving isn't enough. You need to win. You need to have an all-out victory. And once Bakugo and Deku have a fight, and then All Might basically says, listen, you two need to come together because you're too self-destructive and you're just too destructive, right? You need to come together as heroes, as rivals, and really build off each other. We kind of get a development of their ideologies. Deku, like I said, self-sacrifice embodied through his quirk. We're gonna go back here. I want to focus in on the whole USJ incident. It was the training arc, like the forest training arc, right, where he's fighting Muscular. I think that was a super impactful scene to basically show that Deku is a hero with all self-sacrifice. If anything, that's his ability to grit his teeth through pain and persevere just on the hopes that he can save someone, right? Deku destroys his arms in a way that is unprecedented. He is told from the moment he wakes up that you will not be able to keep using this quirk, right, if you continue down this path. And his arms are like a strong focus for the next 2 seasons. He tries to develop a whole separate style because he knows that he can't keep relying on his arms. But that doesn't mean that he's gonna take it easy on his legs. Hell, it doesn't even mean that he's gonna take it easy on his body. Saying something like 1,000,000% when he was fighting Muscular, that's just him gaslighting himself to be able to push himself to save someone. Yes, the whole point is you need to save everyone. You're a hero. That's Deku's mindset, right? But he does rush off into a situation where maybe he could have communicated more. But he feels like it's entirely on him and he doesn't have the options to really get away. Muscular isn't gonna let him get away, and he would much rather die trying, right, than even attempt to go find some help, attempt to contact anyone. Even though, like, I get it, in the situation comms are blocked, but I want you to understand that in this scenario, Deku is well and truly thinking about he's not going to make it out, but as long as he can get this kid to safety, it's all good. He's a hero to someone. But then he's discrediting his own life, you know? He's the self-destructive hero, self-sacrificing, but he doesn't understand the impact of his sacrifice per se. He doesn't preserve his own life. Skipping forward, we have the whole Overhaul and Eri fight, right? Eri fight? Overhaul Deku and, Eri as a support. The only reason that Deku can keep up with Overhaul is because he's quite literally using 100% of his quirk, which, mind you, is still destroying his body, right? But it just helps the fact that Eri's on his back, rewinding it to a point where he can keep moving, keep going. I can imagine he's in unimaginable pain, but it just keeps getting repaired quick enough that he can keep going, keep going. Deku's pain tolerance is something to never sneeze at. Everybody says that he's a crybaby, he's this, he's that, but real talk, Deku is probably the hero that tanks the most pain, bar maybe Bakugo, but Deku just deals with it because his whole thing is, my body doesn't matter, saving that individual does. And this carries on all the way into the final season. Deku just won't drop the idea that he needs to save Tomura Shigaraki. And everybody thinks he's crazy. His past Vessel users think he's mental for even suggesting that. Why would you want to save someone like Tomura Shigaraki? And I get Deku wants to save everyone. He wants to save that little boy inside of him. But it comes to a point where Deku's ideology of wanting to save everyone or save them from themselves is just fueling his self-destructive nature. He's gonna go to hell and high water to make sure that he can make everything okay for everyone else, even if it's at the cost of his own life, right? Trying to say that you're going to save Tomura Shigaraki, someone who's actively saying, there is nothing to save, I'm going to end your life, is basically asking to sign your death warrant. But he does it anyway, because that's who Deku is. That's who Deku is as a character. He just wants to save individuals, even if it's going to cost his own life. And like I said, we have the whole focus of his own quirk being reflected in the damage to his body, and I think it all kind of comes full circle with the fact that he ends up losing all for one. Like I said, with the whole Shigaraki situation, he quite literally gives up his arms. At one point, he fully is under the impression that he will never be able to use his quirk again, but he lets his arms decay away just to make sure that someone else is okay. He never leaves that self-destructive nature at him, and it comes full circle when he loses his quirk. Like, obviously, Deku idolizes these quirks. He lives by them, but it's the fact that he now has to part with it on the basis that he could potentially save Tomura Shigaraki. He's not looking to end him. He's not looking to subdue him. He just wants to save Tomura Shigaraki, and he gives up his own quirk. Basically, everything that's holding him together at that point, right? He's willing to give it up. He's forcing his body to move with the quirk. You know how insane that is, right? And like I said, Deku's whole character is basically gritting his teeth and making it through the pain and destroying himself in the process. And what is a bigger character destruction than giving away his own quirk that he feels like he's finally earned, that he's finally using to the best of his ability, right? Even though he can't use it to 100%, even though there might be some modicum of him that still feels like he hasn't unlocked the full potential of One for All, sorry. But that was never the deal. He only needed enough strength to save individuals. It was never about necessarily being the strongest hero or being the #1 hero. He just wanted to save people. I feel like becoming the #1 hero ended up becoming a secondary goal for Deku, right? As long as he could necessarily keep someone smiling and keep someone's life and everybody's dreams together, then he would be more than willing to walk through fire, right? And let himself get burned to cinders. It's what he did when he ran away from UA, right? When he decided to go on his vigilante arc. And yes, he was really cool on his vigilante arc. but he was also putting himself at unnecessary risk. He wasn't eating, he wasn't sleeping, he was actually destroying his body, all under the premise that he was trying to save everybody from the pain of being around him, that he was an issue, that he needed to sort it out, because if he could stop All for One, then everyone would be safe. Deku is a hero not because he ended up with One for All. He's a hero because he's a psychopath that has such a fixed worldview and won't shake it. He just wants to help people at his own detriment. And yes, people complained about the ending and whatnot, that, oh, Deku losing his abilities was a bad ending, Horikoshi fumbled, this and that. But technically, there was no other way. It's either Deku ended up dying using that quirk, or we had something like this. He just lost the ability to use his quirk. Like his self-destructive natures and tendencies finally caught up to him. And I think it was done well. Right, in the end, he ended up getting his ability, like he got that mecha suit back, and he's gonna be a hero. But he lived the dream. He lived the hero dream very destructively, in my humble opinion. Right, but he saved as many people as he could, and then his embers burned out, and that was all. Right, yes, Deku got the strongest ability in the series at the end of the day. But he didn't use it to become the strongest. He used it to save people without regard for his life. Any other hero who had the ability might have used it a bit more sparingly. Deku used it tactfully, but at the expense of his own body, because he didn't know when to stop. Right? And I do think that makes Deku a great main character. It provides this level of nuance that he doesn't have it all figured out. He's not this master tactician. It literally gets to a point where Carnage Deku, that's what we were calling it, was just him using blind rage. He was still smart about it, but there wasn't any kind of a thought process. We've seen several times that he's basically just fighting to make sure that he can keep this villain in one place, or he can grind them down to a point where maybe he can average a stalemate or something. Deku isn't the greatest hero ever. He's just got the most perseverance, right? He's got a freakish determination, and that's why I really like Deku's character. He's extremely flawed, and he's not the best hero in the world. But he's probably the most determined one. And yes, like I said, people may find the ending somewhat, but at the end of the day, never take it away from Izuku Midoriya that he always had that dog in him, and he always lived to save. Same way that Shigaraki lived to destroy, Deku used his quirk to save. And in the end, it destroyed them in very similar ways, but I find that very poetic at the end of the day. But those are my takes, those are my thoughts, my feelings. Please, let's have a conversation down below. This is a very chilled video. I just want to talk to everybody. So whatever you have to say about Deku and his abilities and how he was presented through the story, I would love nothing more than having a conversation. This is my channel at the end of the day. Let's make it a space where we can talk about characters and anime. I love anime at the end of the day. But ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've had a great time sitting with me. I hope to see you in my next video. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you lovely individuals in the next one.